one soda down. I'm getting after it tonight.
Welcome back, everybody, to the On Deck podcast. And we are live right now, Rhys. We're doing a live stream for On Deck. We're going to start doing these on some Sundays here. And we're talking about the playoff picture today, Rhys. Talking about the MLB postseason because we've gotten here. All of our seeds are set. Our matchups are locked in. So we're going to be in here asking, answering some questions that you guys might have in the comments and just talking good old baseball. How are you doing today, Rhys?
I am doing fantastic. The Tigers clinched yesterday as we're speaking about this because I think we'll be posting this on the Prospects Live podcast channel as well. So for anybody who wants to listen to this, and I've been chilling. I was like, oh, maybe they have a chance to get the win the American League Central. Then I was like, does it really matter? They're playing the Cleveland Indians or Guardians, sorry. So yeah, we're rocking and rolling.
We're getting canceled already.
Mm-hmm.
So looking initially at the playoff picture, should we do the Mets conversation first? I feel like that might be a natural spot to go here with the Reds sneaking into the playoffs, Rhys. I, for one, did not see this coming. I don't think you did either. The Reds are in the playoffs in the year 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, they were less bad than the Mets to end the season. I know they also lost today as well. So it's been fascinating to see the Mets spiral and the Reds just sort of being like, okay, we're gonna play perfectly fine baseball, while the Mets have just been finding new ways to lose. You see, Edwin Diaz came in the fifth inning of the game. Like that's how down bad the Mets were. So yeah, it's probably not great if you go on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever and see all the Mets fans melting down, but this happens when your team doesn't play very well. I remember I saw that they were like at the halfway point of the season, they were one of the best teams in baseball. They had like 2 points in the ERA, and then to finish out the second half of the season, they were like the 26th best team in baseball and like a 4 point something ERA, and that's including what Nolan McClain has done since he's been called up. So yeah, the Mets, their collapse really took off some of the pressure from my Tigers collapse as well. But at least the Tigers made the postseason.
It's been bad. Can you pinpoint where it went wrong for the Mets, do you think, Rhys? And is it just simply a starting pitching failure, or were there some other, I mean, there were buyers at the deadline. They got some pieces that we really liked at the trade deadline. They shouldn't have missed the playoffs, but they went on a really bad slide, especially towards the end of the season. And I credit a lot of that towards starting pitching. Can you give any more analysis on that?
That bullpen being atrocious. It seemed like every reliever that they picked up was absolutely terrible. So the moment they got traded, Ryan Helsley only recently started pitching well again, so that was good for him. Rogers was not the best, and yeah, I just think it's a starting pitching issue. Plus, it's just a whole pitching apparatus issue.
I would agree with that. So the Reds are obviously maybe one of the surprises, but let's look at this from a further back point of view, Rhys. Heading into this year, who would you say the biggest surprise is to be in the postseason out of all these teams?
So there was that instability going on. Will they sell? Will they not sell with the Padres? Like, will they sell off Michael King, Dylan Cease? Turns out they didn't, and they made the right decision. Always go for the postseason because all you have to do is get in, right? We're talking about a team that has the best bullpen, but the Reds are definitely one of the more surprising teams. I don't think people would be too surprised about the Cleveland Guardians. So the most surprising team would have to be the Reds. The Reds kind of, they made a little bit of moves. They changed their manager, but they didn't do too much on the periphery. I mean, they got rid of one of the bigger free agent signings in recent memory in Heimer Candelario during the season and somehow got better. So I'm going to say it's the Reds or the Padres, just because the Padres had a little bit of instability stemming from ownership, not so much the players in the field.
How about the Toronto Blue Jays, Rhys? Because heading into this season, I think I could have seen a team like Boston maybe slightly overperforming and getting into the playoffs. Toronto hugely outperformed maybe our preseason expectations of them, or did you see them as maybe the best team in the American League?
So I don't remember who I picked for the American League East, but it definitely wasn't the Blue Jays. I actually thought the Yankees were going to finish last, and they finished second. So good shout out to them. I think I was like riding the buzz of all the young hitting prospects for the because we are prospect people at the end of the day. I thought, man, these hitting prospects are ready. Christian Campbell's going to be awesome. Turns out not to be the case. Roman Anthony's was going to be awesome. Turns out he was awesome. Then he got hurt, and then Marcelo Mayer was actually starting to look good before he got hurt. So yeah, I just thought that the Blue Jays might have finished third or fourth. I actually even think I thought the Rays were going to do better than the Blue Jays. So maybe they are more surprising. I'd have to go back into a time machine and see what I thought. But the Blue Jays making it is definitely fascinating. I mean, I thought that Anthony Santander was going to be a good signing. Turns out he was not. He's been. I saw someone on Twitter today, but if you watched Anthony Santander have any bats, you are due for some financial compensation at the end of the season. So it's not been the best, thing, but they managed to get the pitching's been awesome. Kevin Gauss has been awesome. Trey Savage is awesome. Their pitching, while it got hurt, is still fantastic. And Alejandro Kirk, after being thrown out recently, doing the good old 9-3 putout, he hit a pretty massive home run today. I was watching MLB Big Inning, and that is one of the better products that we have going on. It's red zone, but with actual stakes going on right now, because Redstone will have stakes going on at some point in the season.
Yeah, Alejandro Kirk, completely almost wiped away that 9-3 put out to end the game from my memory today with something like 8 RBIs and 2 home runs. Just an absolutely insane day. Just kind of single-handedly giving the Blue Jays that 1 seed, which is how big of a competitive advantage is getting the bye in the MLB postseason, Rhys? Because I would say it's a huge advantage. I can also see the other side of the argument, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they were locked into getting the bye, right? But I think you'd rather be the 2 seed in the American League than the 1 seed, because what happens if Aaron Judge actually shows some life in the postseason? I know rare, but what if he does? The Red Sox, they've gotten really good. What's his name? Eaton. He has been a constant pain in the behind. Nate Eaton, man, he has been awesome. A really good defender at third base, by the way. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. So yeah, I just think getting that bye has just been fantastic for them. It allows them to rest up. See how this whole series between a very heated rivalry. We have 2 rivalry series in the American League, so it's going to be really, really fun to see. So yeah, I just think this has been a fantastic season for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, after this podcast, I will be Nate Eaton. Let's talk about the American League first, if you want, Rhys. We're just going to go right past that joke. Bad attempt. Or do you want to start with the National League? Which would you prefer? We're going to break down each series one by one.
We're both American League guys, so do we want to save what we really care for towards the end? Kind of as get through. Although we're American League guys, but we're also San Diego Padres guys. So
I feel like I'm more confident in the National League, like everyone else is, at actually winning the whole thing. And I think the matchups are maybe even better on that side. But yeah. Let's start with the National League. We'll wait to talk about our Padres, Rhys. Cincinnati Reds versus Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm going to ask you a specific question here. How can the Reds win this series? Because there's always a way, right? So even if it's a 1% chance, what is that 1% for the Cincinnati Reds, Rhys?
Probably playing Sal Stewart more than they have been. Sal Stewart and Miguel Andujar need to be playing more. They've been 2 of their more impactful bats, and they don't get consistent enough plate appearances. So I think it's just timely hitting. Honestly, I know it sounds stupid. I think the rotation for the Reds kind of needs to pitch superhuman, and the bullpen's not bad, especially when you have Chase Burns, who's pretty good, all things considered. I didn't actually end up seeing the final line, but I saw a couple of strikeouts because, again, I was watching MLB Big Inning for today after the Lions won, and I was just shocked at how awesome that product is. They need to be doing it more. But he was just, what you expect from Chase Burns, and I think he's kind of the relief ace weapon that this team needs in the back end of that bullpen.
Chase Burns threw 1.2 innings today, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks. And facing 7 batters. So 6 of them ended in a strikeout or a walk, Rhys. And that's something that you can handle in the post. You can handle the walks in the postseason, in my opinion, if you can punch guys out at that rate. Is that fair to say? He could be the 2-inning reliever, the 3-inning reliever in the back end of that bullpen.
You can walk guys in the postseason and it'd be fine. You just cannot compound it with the home run, because you can give up solo shots in the postseason. You cannot give up 2-run home runs, 3-run home runs. Those are backbreaking in the MLB postseason.
Yeah, Chase Burns was about average in the home run rate this year, but you'd have to imagine that number would decrease at the bullpen when you are letting him just simply throw 100 miles an hour and throw those nasty off-speed pitches. So the Reds, this lineup, Sal Stewart has not been playing a whole lot. He's mixing in at first base occasionally. It's a pretty weak lineup, Rhys. And now our starting pitchers, we've talked about this before. Who are the 3 that are going to end up representing the Cincinnati Reds in the postseason? I think there's 2 favorites, but who would you put in that 3rd starting pitching spot?
I think we've been talking about it enough. I think that I kind of think Brady Singer kind of has to be the 3rd starter, because Littell and Abbott stuff play well. And I think you need to move Andrew Abbott into basically being the left-handed version of what you're expecting from Chase Burns. Andrew Abbott needs to be a once through the order guy, because this bullpen is incredibly right-handed. Just looking at roster resource, they have 1 left-handed reliever, and it's Brent Suter, the immortal Brent Suter. So yeah, I think that we're going to be talking about Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and maybe Brady Singer.
Yeah, I fear that they probably will not beat the Dodgers. What's the outlook for the Los Angeles Dodgers in the playoffs, though, Rhys? Because they are not the favorite this year to win the World Series. Both the Mariners and the Phillies are currently favored over the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think part of that would have to be due to the bullpen. What other reasons might you fade the Dodgers? Might you like the Dodgers throughout this run in the postseason?
The reason that you would fade them is that bullpen. Who is going to be closing games out for them? I mean, it might have to be Sasaki, man, and Sasaki's only had like 2 or 3 good outings. So I'm really worried about that. Tanner Scott, Alex Vesia, Blake Trinan just cannot be relied upon. So the way you beat this Dodgers team is through the bullpen. And honestly, the Dodgers might have enough starting pitching that they can just go 3 innings, 3 innings, 3 innings. And, it's going to be very weird to see what they decide to do with Clayton Kershaw. Is Clayton Kershaw the wear it guy for them at this point in his career? Like, is he just the guy who just like, hey, this game's out of hand, or we're really winning by a lot. Just keep this game moving. But it's so fascinating to see what this team can do. And I think that they can beat the Reds by just simply, their lineups better than them. Their rotation's way better than theirs. The bullpen is a little bit worse, and you and I are going to talk about when we talk about the Padres, the bullpen becomes more and more important in the postseason. So the Dodgers not doing anything with their bullpen is a little bit alarming, but I do think they have a chance to at least advance this round. And then when they go to the Phillies, I think the Phillies are going to beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I mean, they are 6 starting pitchers deep, and in their pen they have a guy like Landon Knack or Justin Robleski, sorry,
Robleski?
uh, who both, while neither of them might make the playoff roster, for being honest here, both would provide those extra innings out of the pen. Whereas they profile as maybe the only team that has so many multi-inning relievers that might give them an advantage. Having a guy like Otani be able to go, 2, 3, 4 innings, whether it's in an opener or a piggyback role. Emmett Sheehan, and then Clayton Kershaw is probably the odd man out. Assuming you're going with the Snell, Yamamoto, and Glasnow rotation, but I mean, seeing Glasnow come out of the pen, like that's a real option too, I think.
The only thing I worry about with this matchup is that they are very left-handed heavy in the bullpen and in the rotation. So maybe that is where the Reds can get an advantage. They will have the slight platoon advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where a guy like Sal Stewart might actually get some ABs, huh, Rhys?
Yeah, my boy Sal Stewart. All of a sudden, I'm the guy that's turning around on him and saying that he should be playing more. Who would have thunk?
Let's move on to the San Diego Padres and the Chicago Cubs, Rhys. Super interesting matchup. We have been the Padres guys the last couple weeks. Where are we at on this matchup?
Fernando Tatis Jr. has decided that he's going to enter the postseason on Fuego, basically, and I really hope they wear those beautiful white and pink and blue uniforms, the best uniforms in baseball. I genuinely believe it. So yeah, Fernando Tatis Jr. has been, single-handedly carrying this offense, it feels like. And then the rest of the offense is really good. Like you and I have talked about in the past, and their X factor. The X factor is the 7, 8, 9 hitter. If they can just be perfectly fine average hitters, then we've got a stew going, because this rotation of Michael King, Nick Pivetta, and Dylan Cease is absolutely disgusting. And maybe JP Sears is the long guy. And then they have just the ability to mix and match with the best of them. Suarez, Miller, Morihone, Estrada, Wandy Peralta. I mean, Bradley Rodriguez. I know he's one of your guys in the dynasty closer hierarchy. So we're talking about an absolutely lights out bullpen. I don't think the Cubs really have a chance.
Okay, I'm going to give the counterpoint. If the Cubs did have a chance, this would be why. The Cubs are going to roll out 2 lefties. Rhys, the Padres have quite a few lefties in their lineup, if I'm remembering correctly. Guys like Gavin Sheets and Cronenworth towards the back end of that order. They don't play a whole lot of platoons. A lot of their lefties also swing against lefties to a lesser degree for the most part. So I am interested to see if a guy like Matthew Boyd can, bring back some of that first half magic in the playoffs against these left-handed batters on the Padres, and where that might leave things. A guy like Shota Imanaga could easily steal a win in this series just for the fact that he is left-handed and kind of fill up the zone. I know it's been a down year for Shota, but that is something I'm kind of watching. And the Cubs do have interesting lefty relievers as well. Drew Pomeranz, Taylor Rogers, Caleb Thielbar, and Jordan Wicks, who probably won't make the postseason roster. But they do have lefties in that bullpen to make things kind of interesting with that platoon game that we talk so much about, Rhys.
Yeah, but that third starting rotation spot for the Cubs is dire. It's bad. Colin Ray, Jameson Taillon, Javier Assad, all of them have had perfectly fine seasons. They're probably the worst third started group of anybody in this MLB postseason.
I mean, how much does the Cade Horton injury really affect this team's outlook?
Yeah. The Cade Horton injury is massive because he's probably their game 2 starter. Shoto would be their game 3 starter. So it really just throws a wrench in everything.
Yeah, and even losing a guy like Justin Steele for the season, man. The Cubs are still a very fun team, but I do prefer the Padres as well. Should we kick it over to the wild cards of the American League now, Rhys?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Tigers, Guardians. We're going to start off with a question from Mitch, who asks, for the Tigers, Melton or Mize for Game 3? I'll let you answer this one.
I think it has to be Mize because I think you need to use Melton I think you need to be able to use Melton in multiple games because he's better than Mize. Mize you don't want to be using in the bullpen. Melton, it just seems like he has this calm, cool. He did a fantastic start to end off the season. Very calm, cool guy who you're not going to have to worry about. And Chris Paddock is definitely not back. I don't know if people saw my tweet today. Chris Paddock is not back. I think we need to be relying on Mize as the starter and Melton being used almost every day.
So for a guy like Melton who threw 50 pitches the other day, do you look at him as like a Game 1 throw, like 20 to 30 pitches, and then bounce back for a longer appearance in Game 3 if we get to that point?
Yeah, I hope with Game 1 he's not asked to throw 20 to 30 pitches because I hope Terry Skubal is able to carry the load and then really allow this bullpen to kind of get an extra day of rest. But if he doesn't, then you have Terry Skubal go 7-8 strong. And then, you kind of turn it over to the Rafael Montero, Kyle Finnegan, Will Vest group. And then maybe Melton comes in as the after Jack Flaherty, because Jack Flaherty, I think one of the things in the MLB postseason that I'm surprised more managers don't do is I think that you should just have pitchers ready in the first inning, because if your starter doesn't have it in the first inning, there's no reason you should lose a game in the first inning because you have that guy keep going out there.
And that would be Troy Melton in this situation, right?
Yeah, he's ready to go in the long leverage. I'm genuinely surprised more teams don't think like that. It always blows my mind. There was that game like years and years ago where what was it? The Twins like basically lost the game in the first inning to the Yankees, which they do all the time in the postseason. And the Twins just didn't have anybody ready to go. It's like you should just in the postseason have two guys ready to go in case something bad happens with the starter.
You cannot punt on a game unless you're up like 3-0 really in a series, right? Yeah. Like you have to be up at least 2 games, maybe 3-1. To even consider that. Like wild card round, you can't punt on a game. No. Clearly. So what's the max pitch count for a guy like Tarek Skubal in the postseason, Rhys? Because we talk about this. I mean, everything's must win from here on out. How many pitches are you giving him?
Until his arm falls off. We're riding him until he falls apart. No, 110, 120. I feel like he's the workhorse that can handle it. So that's kind of why you have the best pitcher on the face of the planet, right?
Yeah. And
you don't need to save any bullets.
Let's talk about Cleveland a little bit and how they match up, Rhys. I know you are a Tigers fan. If you took your bias aside, where do you see the edge going? Because both these teams finished very similarly at the end of the season. The Tigers definitely, I would say, have a slight edge, but I'm interested to see where your mind goes with the stumble that the Tigers have been on lately.
The slight edge goes to the Cleveland Guardians because that bullpen is absolutely lights out. Matt Festa, Eric Sabrowski, Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, and then some of the starters that aren't going to make this rotation. Slade Ciccone has actually pitched pretty well. Logan Allen. And Joey Cantillo looks pretty strong. I think he's a perfectly fine left-handed reliever to add to this absolutely nasty bullpen. Colby Allard will be the ultimate wear it guy. I feel like we're the only podcast that worries about the wear it guys. So maybe that's what we could name our podcast, the wear it guys. But yeah, I think the Cleveland team, their offense is not as good as the Tigers when everything is sort of rocking and rolling. They do have the single best offensive piece, but I think that the sum of the parts, I like the lineup, the Tigers lineup a little bit better, but the pitching staff, I think, kind of goes to the Guardians, especially that bullpen.
I would agree with that. But Cleveland does not have Skubal, do they, Rhys? So that's where things get interesting, right? Is like, if you're talking about what you expect to be Gavin Williams versus Tarek Skubal Game 1, right?
I expect it to be Gavin Williams versus Tarek Skubal. I don't imagine that they would do anything weird or wonky.
If the Tigers lose that game, Rhys, it's a complete and utter failure
from
all fronts because you only need to score a handful of. Tarek Skubal is not going to give up 5 in the playoffs. I'm sorry. I refuse to see a situation where that happens, not to try and jinx anything. I'll knock on wood over here. I do prefer the Detroit Tigers lineup 1-9 compared to the Cleveland Guardians. And I think that Skubal piece where I'm fully anticipating the Tigers to win Game 1 just matters so much. Game 2 and 3 could obviously get really weird once kind of the starting pitching evens out. But you have a guy like Tarek Skubal, you have to win Game 1. And I expect them to do that, which is why I'm riding with the Tigers, Rhys.
I'm glad. I'm a little pessimistic after I saw Terry Skubal give up 3 runs with no ball leaving the infield because that's what the Cleveland Guardians love to do. But I think he's going to be ready, and he's going to pound the zone, throw a lot of strikes, and just get out there and just show why he's the best pitcher on the face of the MF and planet.
Absolutely. Let's move on to Boston versus New York. Rivalry matchup in the playoffs. Obviously, another rivalry matchup with Detroit and Cleveland also being one. Rhys, where do you stand on Boston versus New York? Super interesting series.
Honestly, I feel like I'm gonna waffle on this one. I don't really have that super strong of a leaning. I think it's gonna be absolutely fascinating as a someone who just enjoys baseball. That 6 o'clock start time on Wednesday is going to be electric. That 6 o'clock start time on Tuesday is also going to be electric. I'm just so excited to see these historic fan bases and franchises go at it with each other. I think right now I like the pitching staff for the Red Sox a little bit more. So maybe that's where I give them the slight edge, but it's like 51-49% if you're going with percentiles, because I just really am not super confident in either team. The one thing is playoff Giancarlo Stanton. Does playoff Giancarlo Stanton hit more or outproduce what is going to be maybe Aaron Judge struggling in the postseason, and maybe Aaron Judge finally puts it together in a postseason run and looks like the best hitter on the face of the planet at certain points. Maybe not the AL MVP though.
So here's my problem: is I love Aroldis Chapman, right? He's probably the best reliever in baseball this year. I think that's fair to say. The Yankees have a much deeper bullpen than the Red Sox do. I know that some of these guys have struggled. Your Devin Williams, your David Bednars aren't the most assured thing on the face of the earth right now. But Devin Williams still sneakily put together a really strong season if you don't look at ERA only. I like the depth of the Yankees bullpen. I think the lineup's pretty close to a wash. Starting pitching is really where I think that this series gets interesting because Fried versus Crochet, is that going to be a 1-0 ball game, Rhys? Like that, I can anticipate that being just almost a dud of an offensive game for both sides.
That's going to be a 1-0 ball game that's done in an hour and 56 minutes. That game is going to move, which is going to be good for everybody in baseball. The one question I do have: who it gets bumped from this rotation in for the Red Sox? Sorry, I was like I was dying there for a second. Kyle Harrison probably gets bumped because I don't know if you want to have him and early. I think Kyle Harrison stuff might play well in like a 2 to 3 inning spurt as well. So, and then do you really want to does Lucas Giolito make the postseason roster? Is a question I've been asking myself a lot.
I think that you put Giolito out there before you put earlier Harrison out there in the starting rotation.
Interesting.
Experience, I think, matters a lot. Giolito has put together like a decently complete season this year. Like he hasn't looked horrible. I would lean Giolito after Crochet and Brian Bayo, but I wish we were talking about Peyton Tolley here, but he's moved back into the bullpen.
Yeah. I just like the upside more that early provides, where I just think Lucas Giolito, he is prone to a couple blow up starts here and there. So that's what I do worry about. But, things are going to happen in the postseason. Maybe early does play better out in the left handed. He can be part of a better 2 to 3 inning sort of spurts. And maybe him and Kyle Harrison can just be absolutely nasty in the back end of that bullpen, because they do need some bullpen reinforcement.
I lean early over Harrison. I'd be surprised if both early Harrison and Peyton Tolley are all on the postseason roster, but I suppose it's what you think about the other guys. And they do have a couple lefties in their pen already. A guy like Steven Matz is still hanging around, kind of occupying that lefty reliever role. So I'm not sure if you bring both early and Harrison to a wild card matchup, Rhys, but who knows? I think in the next round, you could obviously see that with playing more games. Something I do want to talk about is we're going to see Brian Bayo versus Carlos Rodon. That's a weird matchup, in my opinion. Then we're going to see either Warren or Schlittler or Heel versus early Harrison or Giolito. Like, neither of these teams have a well-defined number 3 starting pitcher. And honestly, their number 2s don't excite me that much. I know Carlos Rodon and Brian Bayo have had good years, but this could go either way based on whoever just has better starting pitching in games 2 and 3, Rhys. Is that fair to say?
I think game 2 is going to determine who wins the series, because which one of these volatile pitchers ends up being the least volatile of the two. So I think that may ultimately be what sets everything up for, an important, all hands on deck game 3.
And that's why I do think the bullpens matter so much in this series, because of the questionable starting pitching in games 2 and 3. And that brings us to a question from Mitch again. Why isn't Tolley starting game 3, Rhys? Is it an innings limit issue?
I didn't see why he got moved to the bullpen. I was very fascinated by it. Maybe they just want to be able to use him and be able to mix and match him when they want to, because that fastball, that cutter, that changeup is nuts.
I do think that it might have something to do with innings, because this was his first season of professional baseball, and he is up to 91 innings in the minor leagues plus 16 in the MLB. So he's approaching that kind of 110 inning limit. He's probably only got a handful left. I think that there's a world where you could see him open in maybe like a divisional series and go, 4 or 5 innings, but I don't think we'll see him get extended any further. I don't think that they're planning on having him throw this much this year, but he forced his way into the MLB, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, he's probably on the short list for my minor league pitcher of the year, by the way. We'll probably have to do that in the next podcast or so. But he's been fantastic. And honestly, I kind of like the ability to use him and pick and choose your spots in short spurts, short bursts, right? Instead of having him just be a starter.
And when we're talking about minor league pitchers of the year, we should probably start talking about the Blue Jays, Rhys, and Trey Savage, who's looked awesome in the MLB so far. Amazing stuff. And the Blue Jays, as the 1 seed, will face the winner of Boston, New York. We have our little AL East part of the bracket here. The Blue Jays, do they match up better against one of these 2 teams in your mind?
I think the Blue Jays match up better with. I think they match up just fantastic with both of these teams. I mean, I think I like the lineup more. I like the bullpen. I think the bullpen doesn't have the quote sexy names that some of the Yankees. They don't have a Chapman or anything like that. But they've just been really good. You've talked about it recently. Brendan Little, Louis Varland actually has been pitching pretty all right lately. Brandon Fisher. They've have some Mason Flaherty and Eric Lauer. I'm just going to move on from the Flaherty part. But yeah, it's something that. I think this team matches up with anybody in the American League.
I would agree with that. I don't think that there's necessarily a bad matchup for Toronto, other than maybe the Seattle Mariners, who they will meet later, who have kind of kicked their rear the last couple of years. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about Toronto versus either Boston or New York. I think that those teams both profile somewhat similarly. Obviously, New York has a little bit more star power with the bats. And then Boston also has Garrett Crochet. So we look at these teams like Detroit and Boston, who both have these, 1 and 2 in the AL Cy Young race, Rhys. And I'm inclined to pick both the underdogs in the American League, Detroit and Boston, because they have the best pitcher in the series. And I do think that translates to a win. So my early prediction would be for those 2 teams to advance. Let's talk about Detroit and Cleveland facing off against the Seattle Mariners, Rhys. I recently got tickets to this series. I am going to be at a postseason baseball game in Seattle for the first time in my life. So I'm interested in what you think about Detroit or Cleveland heading up to Seattle.
We should do a live podcast. We should just attach a GoPro to you and just see you just like go through it. I would love to see how Nate interacts as a Mariners fan. Sorry, what did you ask me? I was just so fascinated by the idea of putting a GoPro on you and just rock and roll with that.
I do have a GoPro. Maybe I'll hit an Instagram live from the Prospects Live account or something, or Twitter Live, whatever we're on now. I was just asking you general thoughts and vibes on Detroit or Cleveland versus the Seattle Mariners. Is there a team that you think could knock off the Mariners, who are the by far favorites to come out of the American League right now?
I think that of any of these teams I don't want to sound like a homer. I think the Detroit can, because just the certainty of having Terry Skubal pitches 2 games in a series, and maybe you get just 2 wins from that is just fantastic, and then you can get kind of pitching chaos your way to maybe the other win. So I think that the Tigers have a better chance to do it. I don't know if you agree with me or not. I don't know which team are you more afraid of?
I've said this before on Deck. I'm way more afraid of the Detroit Tigers, Rhys. I don't know if you remember, we talked about this. The Mariners have 5 right-handed starting pitchers, right? Which will end up being 3 or 4 in the playoffs, whatever. What do the Tigers do better than anyone else, Rhys?
Platoon and pitching chaos.
It scares me, right? That is one thing that scares me, is if we have all right-handed pitchers. Granted, they all are decently platoon neutral in their mixes. The Detroit Tigers can play a little bit of chaos, put a guy like Zach McKinstry in there, Kerry Carpenter, obviously, on the strong side of that platoon. Yeah. The Tigers' best lineup is against right-handed pitching. I think that's pretty easy to say. So I am slightly concerned about that piece. And we really only have one really good lefty reliever. And what happens when you throw Andy Ibanez in, because he can just play anywhere, and he's basically guaranteed to match up against Gabe Spire, who's a lefty specialist. I think that there are a couple of concerning things for me with the Tigers. However, them sputtering so much down the stretch while we have been so strong, we as in the Mariners, because I'm calling them us now. I'm not too worried. I get more worried when it comes to a team like Toronto, Boston, or New York. I think we got the lucky side of this bracket.
I think you guys did as well. I will say Jahmai Jones has been fantastic the past 2 or 3 games. He has been, I almost wonder if you would have to start Jahmai Jones regardless of platoons because of the way in which he's hitting. Because the one thing is the Mariners aren't going to be able to chase Kerry Carpenter out of the game, because they only have one opportunity to do it. And then so that's the one thing that I would be worried about if I was a Mariners fan. But I genuinely think Mariners will take good care and just it might not be a sweep, but it'll be like a gentlemanly sweep, whatever they call it, of whichever one of these American League Central teams advance.
Yeah, so Caleb Ferguson does have a little bit of stress on him as the only other lefty in this Mariners bullpen. He hasn't been great since he got traded over at the deadline. So I am interested to see how and if they even really choose to deploy him at all, or if guys like Matt Brash and Andres Munoz have to face a bunch of lefties as right-handed pitchers. I do think that the AL is decently wide open. Let's go back over to the NL, Rhys. Let's assume the Dodgers are going to match up against the Phillies because that does feel like it's going to happen. That is going to be probably the series of the playoffs before you get to the World Series. What are your thoughts, LA versus Philadelphia, Rhys?
I think Philadelphia just, like I said earlier, beats the brakes off of the Dodgers. The lineup's better. It's more complete. I mean, Trey Turner came back. We're talking about the better rotation. The Dodgers have more depth in their pitching rotation, but I think just the Phillies rotation is fantastic. I believe Joe Duran has been one of the more elite relievers. I mean, he's already elite, don't get me wrong, but he's even taken a little bit of a step forward, even with the Phillies. Who would have guessed playing games that matter really means something for a relief, especially for a closer. So yeah, I just, it sucks that they don't have Zach Wheeler, but this is a team that I think it's just better, like top to bottom. I think that this is a team that has a real chance to play off against the San Diego Padres in the National League Championship Series.
Yeah, when you look at the non-star players on both teams in their lineup, Rhys, I strongly prefer the Phillies. I mean, you have a guy like JT Realmuto batting eighth. Do you know who's batting eighth for the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Ben Rochevert.
He's ninth. Andy Pajes is batting eighth. I'm sorry, Andy Pajes has had a good year. That WAR is severely inflated because of the great defense. That is not the same as having a guy like JT Realmuto who has been here before in your 8-hole. I agree on the starting pitching point. I am wondering if both bullpens are shakier. We've already described the Dodgers bullpen as shaky, obviously. I'm not sold on the Phillies bullpen, Rhys. I'm not sold. Are you looking at some of the names in this bullpen, some of these guys that they've had rotating through this year? It's not the most sure thing ever, in my opinion.
It's not the most sure thing. I don't think they're blowing games nearly as badly as the Dodgers are, right? Like coming into this, we can only judge them based on their recent form, and unless the Dodgers bullpen really puts it together against probably the worst team to get into the postseason. Don't get me wrong, unless they use that as a get right series. I just don't think that their shaky bullpen, or I don't think the Phillies shaky bullpen is as shaky as the Dodgers extremely shaky bullpen.
Let's move back over now to Padres / maybe Cubs against the Milwaukee Brewers, Rhys. This is where you and me probably both say that the Cubs beat the Brewers. Is that fair to say?
You mean the Padres beat the Brewers?
Sorry, yes, the Padres beat the Brewers.
Yes, I was about to say we do not believe that the Cubs are winning this series. I mean, I put it like a 10% chance. If anybody wants to message me on Twitter, you can message me at mdtomplive. And send all your angry tweets that way. But yeah, I think that the Padres have a chance to. It'll be a very competitive series because there's very bullpen centric teams. The back end of the lineup really has to do a lot of carrying for these guys.
It's not an offensive series at all.
No, it is not. It's a lot of 2-1. If somehow a team scores 4 runs, that should be celebrated.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Brewers, it'll be interesting to see how this style of baseball, similar to the Cleveland Guardians, does in the postseason, and how much home runs really do matter here. And I'm inclined to go with what history tells us, is that you have to be able to hit home runs in the postseason. So I have a really hard time liking a team like the Milwaukee Brewers. With that being said, the Padres haven't hit as many home runs as you might expect this year. I think they're bottom 10 in the MLB. But when I think about their lineups on paper, more star power equals maybe more big home runs. Is that a fair kind of thought process for the Padres to beat the Brewers?
Yeah, I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. has hit some pretty massive home runs just in the past couple of days. So, I mean, he's coming in hot. He's ready to go. And Luis Arias can I almost wish that they kind of flip this lineup. I wish that Luis Arias would be the leadoff guy, just see a bunch of pitches, just be annoying, right? And then allow Fernando Tatis Jr. to maybe have someone else on first base. It's going to be very fascinating how they decide to build out this lineup. But I mean, just the offensive upside that this Padres lineup has is just infinitely higher than the Brewers lineup.
Yeah, and Mitch is asking, no Brewers love for the NLCS. Please drop some comments in the chat if you are with us. I don't know. It's not that we don't like the Brewers. I just don't know if they play postseason baseball that we might see from a World Series winning team, Rhys.
I that bullpen is pretty nasty. Abner Uribe is maybe the most underrated reliever in all of baseball. I feel like he's been awesome. So I don't know, but I struggle with this lineup. Let me just read you the lineup right now according to roster resource. Christian Yelich, Jackson Churio, Bryce Terang sitting in the 3 hole, William Contreras, Sal Frelick, Andrew Vaughn, Jake Bowers, Caleb Durbin, and Joey Lopez or Joey Ortiz. I don't know why I said Joey Lopez. It's not the sort of stuff that you really want to see. There's no like Bryce Harper. There's no Fernando Tatis Jr. There's no superstar in this lineup. I know the sum is better than all of its parts, but I just really have concerns about, like you said, them hitting home runs because Bryce Terang's not hitting home runs. He might hit like a 2-run double or something like that, but that's still, you can come back from a 2-run double. You cannot come back from a back-breaking grand slam.
And I find it hard to think that this lineup will be able to match up against Robert Suarez, Mason Miller, Adrian Morejon, and Jeremiah Estrada, because those 4 guys will pitch every single day. You have 4 or 5 innings, just automatic right there. Your starter has to go 4 or 5 innings, and then you turn it over to those guys. I don't see a crack there, Rhys. You could argue Adrian Morejon, but I think he's one of the best relievers in baseball.
That is a lineup, or sorry, a pitching rotation. Like if you can get 5, if you can get 6 innings from a starter, oh my goodness, you're buying one of those relievers an extra day of rest. You're absolutely cooking the gas, and not to mention, to 2 of those starters maybe gets bumped into the bullpen. I think Nick Pivetta, if he's the guy who gets bumped into the bullpen, he can be nasty. He's very volatile as well, but he can be absolutely awesome. He's capable of either giving up 12 runs or striking out 12 batters. Like he's the duality of man. I just, if, like you said, all they have to do is just get at least 4 innings from their starter, and then they're just like, here you go, this like fire breathing dragon of a bullpen. Let's just rock and roll. And I don't even know who the Padres manager is. That's maybe not a good point in my part, but I don't even think he could mess this up.
Isn't it Bob Melvin? No, he's with the Giants now.
Yeah, he's with the Giants. He's bounced around. He's been with every California team, it feels like, except for the Dodgers. He's going to be the Angels' new manager.
When I'm thinking about the Padres, I just can't get over that bullpen. And Rhys, this year we will see if our bullpen theory rings true or not, because we are riding the teams that have the best bullpens and can hit a bunch of home runs. I think that's a fair assumption of what we're doing, right? We're high on the Phillies, we're high on the Brewers, and we're high on the Mariners. I think those are the 3 teams that we've been in on. Sorry, did I say Brewers? I meant Padres.
Yeah, there are a couple things that I think you and I both really like. We like a team that can throw the ball real fast, and we like guys who hit real long dings. So, yeah, this is what we're looking for. It sounds very barbaric and very stupid, but that's kind of maybe what the postseason comes down to. You need to play good enough defense. You need to have a lockdown bullpen, and you just need to hit the opportune home run when you get guys on base. You need to walk and get what they call it, ducks on the pond. You just need to get guys on base and hit home runs.
Is it fair for me to think as a Mariners fan that if we don't come out of the American League, this season has been a bit of a failure, the way we match up against these other 5 teams? I don't see a team that I'm truly scared of. And I'm not scared of the Blue Jays at all. I think the Mariners should be favored in any series that they're in this postseason. Is that a fair way of thinking, Rhys?
I don't think in this postseason, and I don't think there's any team that's like World Series or bust. Maybe the Dodgers with how much money they spent, but I mean, if you make it to the American League, you're more than likely going to make it out of the American League Division Series. I think it's very unlikely that you guys won't. But if you lose to a better American League East, a team that just plays a little bit better, right? I'm not saying better on paper, but like they just play a little bit better in the American League Central or Championship Series. I keep seeing ALC and I'm keep thinking American League Central, but I don't think it would be a disappointment for you. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's other fan sentiment that's like, this is a team that needs to absolutely make it to the World Series. I just don't see that with any of these teams right now.
This is the first time the Mariners have ever been favored to win the World Series, or at least the AL, in my lifetime. I just look at our lineup and our pitching rotation as there's no team in the AL that competes with either of those 2 units.
No. I
can't find a better lineup, and I cannot find a better pitching rotation. I can find bullpens that are close or slightly better. But even then, the AL has much weaker bullpens than the NL. The talent is in the National League. Like, this is why I won't bet the Mariners to win the World Series, because the talent is in the National League with these bullpens, with these lineups, these stars. It's so much heavier over there. Like, Rhys, the National League is going to end up having our eventual World Series champion more than likely, right?
I mean, anything happens once you make it to the World Series, right? But I would definitely say that I think that there's a better chance that a National League championship, a National League team is going to be what did Rob Manfred call it? A hunk of metal. He's going to be the team is going to be lifting the hunk of metal. I mean, unless somehow, I mean, if the Reds make it, maybe not. If the Cubs make it, probably not. So yeah, I think of the other four four really strong teams in the National League. I would not be shocked if they won the World Series, and we're really hoping the Padres do.
So let's talk about playoff predictions because I don't know if I like the Phillies or the Padres more, Reese. Let's say that they match up in the NLCS, Phillies v Padres to go to the World Series. What's our lean?
Okay, so we talked about the couple things that we like. I'm not super sold on the Phillies defense. I think the Padres up the middle defense is fine, but also I'm going to go with the Padres, man. We're just going to ride this theory that the bullpen, this absolutely nasty bullpen, that they traded a lot to lock down this bullpen, and they hit some opportune home runs. Now, if they don't hit the opportune home runs, they won't win games. But whatever, right? I'm going to go. I think I lean the Padres here.
I agree with you, man. Xander Bogaerts coming back helps that Padres lineup so much. Freddie Fermin has been like fun
Fine.
enough. Like he's been fun enough. Jake Cronenworth has not been bad. Like he held down shortstop when he needed to. I know it wasn't pretty. And we talk about Rhino Hearn, who you and me talked about as a playoff X factor, has been absolutely on fire the last couple of weeks in September in general. There's enough star power throughout this. I mean, Machado, Tatis, Merrill in the postseason. You have your underrated guys like Gavin Sheets, Rhino Hearn. And I just can't get over that bullpen. Really, it comes down to, do the Padres have enough starting pitching depth to get it to the bullpen? Because like we're talking about an ALDS series where you have to pick a fourth starter. Who is that guy? Is it Yu Darvish? It's definitely not JP Series, so it almost has to be Yu Darvish, right?
I was going to ask you, do you think JP Sears even makes the postseason roster at any point? Like, I don't see what he brings. He was kind of just like tacked into this, into the Mason Miller trade. Like, you can have him if you want, like, I guess. So, I mean, they ended up trading, what was his name? Nestor Cortez, or they got, did they get Nestor Cortez? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, he was on the IL.
Yeah, but they got a good prospect out of it too. Weird trade. But yeah, I think Yu Darvish kind of has to, because Yu Darvish can really, mix and match with the best of them. He throws like 1,000 different pitches, and you never know which one's coming. He'll scrap certain ones for certain games. So yeah, I think Yu Darvish is the four starter, and I actually kind of like him as a four starter. He might be one of the more interesting gambles as a four starter.
Something that we haven't talked about is the Ramon Laureano injury, Reese, who is set
Yeah,
to be in a splint for 3 weeks, is what I'm seeing. So he's basically a non-factor in the playoffs now. So that puts some pressure on some other guys, especially in the platoon game. Is that too big of a loss? Like, do we need to consider that throughout all this, or it's Ramon Laureano, right? He's been good,
I don't
but is
think
he?
Ramon Laureano is the game. Like, he's not going to be the reason that they lose a game, right? Like, so I think Gavin Sheets is a perfectly fine piece that comes in and just plays left field. You really hope a ball doesn't get hit his way, but he actually hasn't been like, I don't know what DRS or outs above average is, but I know what my eyeballs tell me. And Gavin Sheets has not been the train wreck in left field that I normally would expect. He's been fine, like almost you don't even notice him out there, which for him is fantastic. So I think that Gavin Sheets can go to hold it down for 3 weeks, and then if this team makes it far, Laureano coming in, pinch hitting situations, pretty awesome thing to have, because the one thing I do worry about with this team is the bench is pretty bad. Elias Diaz, Jose Iglesias, Mason McCoy, Will Wagner, Bryce Johnson. None of those guys really inspire a lot of confidence. Maybe Wagner can come on and be a a lefty bat that can kind of like gets on base, and just don't do anything else, man. But yeah, the Laureano injury really hurts their bench more than anything, because then Gavin Sheets has to actually play more.
Yeah, you're hoping for a guy like Jose Iglesias, who's been around the block a little bit. Same with Elias Diaz as well, to really make kind of an impact in the postseason as kind of their true bench bat is Jose Iglesias. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I would have liked them to make. I would have liked them to have made one trade, just like a back end like piece, to get something else a little bit better than Will Wagner on their bench. As much as I like Will Wagner.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Okay, we're riding the Padres to the World Series, and are they going to match up with the Mariners, Reese?
No, they're gonna match up against the Blue Jays.
Wow. So how
I
do the
know.
Blue Jays meet the Mariners? What happens there?
I think that the Blue Jays beat obviously they beat whichever one of the other American League teams, and I think that the way they do it is they do it through their starting pitching, and I think that their lineup takes a step forward, and the lineup is pretty deep. I like their lineup a lot, and I just think it'd be a fun World Series. I think Padres versus Blue Jays would be a very, very fun World Series, with the Padres end up winning, and Southern California gets to celebrate a championship.
and we get to celebrate our
Hats.
Padres fandom and our hats that we are going to get. Honestly, if the Padres win the World Series, it might be jerseys at this point because the odds are large. Like it's unlikely, right?
What jersey are you getting? Are you one of these guys that's going to get an obscure jersey, or are you going to get? We're already counting the wins before that happens. But are you someone who gets like the star player, or are you like someone who gets someone obscure?
I want that white one that you've been talking about. Is that what's the word for that? Is that a statement jersey, color rush? What is what's it called?
City Connect.
That's City. Okay, yeah.
It's
No, I'm silly.
the last year that they have the City Connects.
I love their brown pinstripe, so I'd probably get that. But we're definitely getting you a City Connect. We should probably pick out our jerseys now, just before the playoffs start, just so we have this all set. Because I did promise us jerseys. All right, I would want to go. I mean, probably Jackson Merrill. Or
Ooh.
what if I got a Mason Miller jersey as a former pitcher? I think that's kind of sick too.
I was gonna say you seem like a Mason Miller guy. I imagine that you would listen to Nickelback before you went out there. So Mason Miller seems like your sort of thing.
Okay.
I was like, I Manny Machado is always cool. Fernando Tatis, I really don't care. If I'm getting a free jersey out of this, I'm just doing backflips. I'd take that. I take anything. If the Padres want to send us any free gear, you can DM me at Rhys B. White. If you want to send me any angry things, though, MD Tom at PLive.com.
I'm gonna get you a Freddie for me in City Connect, and I'll get
myself
hell yeah a Mason Miller brown pinstripe.
That's some real ball knowledge stuff there. A Bryce Johnson one, that would be freaking awesome. You show up to a bar just wearing one of those jerseys.
Bryce Johnson, that's good.
Be the only person that's not Bryce Johnson's family.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's our postseason predictions / preview. Rhys, do you have any departing thoughts for our viewers?
Yeah, this was a really, really stressful end of the season for me. I watched the Tigers really just try to really not make the postseason. They backed their way in. Shout out to all the Reds fans. I can't imagine what it's like in Skyline, Chile right now because those people must be going crazy. But yeah, it's been a fun season. I'm very excited about this postseason. I know you and I are going to be going through. We're still going to be podcasting, so we're going to be talking about the postseason and what's going on. We'll have an episode going live on Friday, so we'll probably talk about give our National League Division Series, and do a recap of what happened in the wild card. I hope I'm not crying a lot on that podcast.
I hope you are, because that would be great content for us, if we're being honest. But no, this has been a blast. I think we'll keep doing some live streams either every Sunday or every other Sunday, something like that, depending on how much you guys end up liking these. This will be posted to all podcasting platforms tonight as well. So stay tuned for our second episode later on this week. We thank you guys so much for joining us today. Enjoy your Sunday night football. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we will see you next time.